And Pascal Siakam traded to the Indiana Pacers as we pick back up here. The Indiana Pacers finally pulling the trigger and getting somebody in there in their infrastructure, an all-star, former NBA, all-NBA player. Pascal Siakam was 29 going into 30 years old. Won a championship in 2019 with the Toronto Raptors. Obviously was a solid player there next to Kawhi and really stepped up defensively. I feel like that was his calling card in that series over the course of that playoffs, and really became another two guy next to Kawhi Leonard. And stepped up and played well over the past couple of years. Have the Toronto Raptors have been failing to meet expectations and get back to that surface level, but they were really just tearing down that team slowly and surely. Losing Fred VanVleet last year, Serge Ibaka, a lot of guys are gone. OG Anunoby, who they traded about 2 weeks ago. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty of this deal. The Pacers received Pascal Siakam in a 2024 pick from the Pelicans, I believe. The Raptors received Bruce Brown, Jordan Noir, and Kara Lewis Jr. from the New Orleans Pelicans, and 3 first-round picks. Now, just to speak on the side of the Toronto Raptors, I love what they're doing. Scotty Barnes is there. And you got to figure out, they traded for RJ Barrett as well. And you got to figure out what you have here in terms of 2 young guys that you can build around. And they're trying to build around Scotty Barnes to get guys like Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, and then to sit there and get Kara Lewis, who has some potential there that they can also look at point guard there as well. At some point, they're going to have to trade Jakob Poeltl. I hope that's the next move for them and just continue to build assets. But this is how you rebuild. And Masai Ujiri has a good mindset, who was emotional after trading Pascal Siakam. Had a cool story about him. But Masai Ujiri's seeing ahead. And he waited, and maybe he could have got those 4 first-round picks for OG Anunoby from Memphis last year. But he got 3. He got a couple there, and then he got something for Pascal Siakam. Now, he didn't want to pay Pascal Siakam, but this is the best thing. You get young guys who are potential to grow for that team. The Pelicans were in this deal, and they just got cash considerations, which is weird. I don't know why they didn't try to see if they can get a player or see what type of deal they can do or whatever they're doing. But I feel like it was a good deal for the Raptors to continue to rebuild, continue to get assets, continue to build, and see what you got there. And with Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, and these guys, and see if you can develop there. Looking at it from the standpoint of the Indiana Pacers. The Indiana Pacers are obviously the highest rated offense of all time. I think they put up 129 points. They get up and down. And now they got another guy who can finish creating the half court, I think was another part of this deal. Yes, the Pacers play fast and move up and down and shoot threes. Pascal's not shooting the 3 that great this year, but in terms of what Pascal can bring, he can finish at the basket. He can create in the half court. He gets out in transition as well, finishes at the basket with dunks and layups. And that's what the Indiana Pacers do. They get out and run, and playing with a guy like Tyrese Halliburton makes sense for Pascal Siakam, a person who's trying to get a max contract, a person who's trying to work on his numbers there. Kind of was lost in the sauce there in Toronto as they were trying to figure out what they were doing, but gets to a situation where he's a vital number 2 and doesn't have to create everything. At times will be doing that, but next to Tyrese Halliburton, that's a good pairing for him. And there were rumors of him going to, some people were saying Philly should have tried to get him. I don't know how that would have worked. And then people were saying the Kings should have got him. And I was thinking maybe that's a good spot for him because it's a young team. They get up and down. He'll be able to fit in there. But then it was just a situation of the Sacramento Kings having to pay De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, 2 guys who they just paid, and then having to pony up some money for Pascal Siakam. So I can understand why that didn't go through and why he wouldn't want to do that, because he would be third on the pecking order and have to battle with Sabonis for that second time. But looking at it from the Indiana Pacers, they really need somebody else to score. They really need an inside threat. Miles Turner stretches the floor. Buddy Hield stretches the floor. Benedict Mathurin is a scorer. And they needed somebody that's a little bit more dynamic. And I think Pascal Siakam's a little bit underrated because he's getting lost in the sauce in Toronto. And people keep saying he's going to shore up the defense and do this stuff. I don't think that's the main thing that he's going to look at right now, especially this iteration of the Indiana Pacers. But going forward, that's a good option to have. Pascal Siakam, who's averaging 22.2 points per game, 8.3 rebounds. Oh, no, 6.3 rebounds. Sorry, looking at that, and 4.9 assists. And he's a good, solid option. And that's something that Indiana desperately needed. They don't have that on their roster going forward. They don't have that. So to sit there and turn around and get Pascal Siakam for what they did and keep their core intact and have more moves to make if they need a trade, and they have some guys that can trade, Buddy Hield, Miles Turner, and continue to see if they can continue to get some guys next to Tyrese Halliburton, who's been playing fantastic and at an all-star level, who played tonight. They both played tonight. They lost to Portland, I believe. Let me just check the score. I believe they lost to Portland. Yes, they did. 118-115. It was close. Portland was up big at times, but Indiana tried to rally back and just fell short. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting pairing and see how it goes forward. Now, people are going to sit there and say this move doesn't move them up in the Eastern Conference in terms it doesn't get them past New York, in terms of it doesn't get them past Philly, it doesn't get them past Milwaukee, it doesn't get them past the Boston Celtics. But with their play style and with Siakam, you got to give them a chance at least to make some noise and continuously, because they were doing it without having another guy. And now that they have another guy, and we're at some points in the fourth seed earlier in the season, before Tyrese Halliburton just went down, he just came back tonight. You got to punch his chance. And if you're Indiana, a small market team who doesn't get a bunch of free agents, doesn't get a bunch of trade offers to bring a guy in, you got to take this move. You got to take a chance on this one. And I really like that for the Indiana Pacers. In terms of free agency and stuff like that for the Indiana Pacers, the biggest free agent they signed was David West. And I believe that was 2011, 4 years, $44 million at that time after his run was done in New Orleans. Chris Paul got hurt. He got hurt just at the wrong times. And David West is the biggest all-star that Indiana has ever had in their franchise history. And I love David West on 2K, especially with the New Orleans Hornets, and then especially with the Indiana Pacers. But that's the biggest free agent they had, a guy that was 17-8 for their franchise. That's the biggest free agent they were able to sign. So when people are questioning this Pascal Siakam, it's like, how many stars are going to be willing to say, hey, yeah, I want to go to Indiana. Yeah, I want to buddy up and go play with Tyrese Halliburton in Indiana. That just doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen. So at least for them taking this move, they're going to have to pay some money to Pascal Siakam. They can figure out their salaries. But you already got Tyrese Halliburton sold up. You're going to have Pascal Siakam at least for 3 years, 2 to 3 years, with this this next contract that's coming up. And that's not a bad move. You can still figure out what to do and how to move and add some players. But see if you can build something here in Indiana. Do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I like the move for both teams. I like the move for Kara Lewis, getting an opportunity in Toronto, hopefully. Maybe get flipped. I don't know. Toronto keep making moves. People saying they should flip Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown's already playing dividends there. So it's a good move for everybody involved. And I like it for Pascal Siakam. I like it for the Indiana Pacers. I like it for Toronto Raptors. All these teams are trying to build and do something going forward. We can't say that for every team. So enjoy the basketball, enjoy the trade, and let's see what happens with it. But that will do it for this episode of the Basketball Soapbox. Thank you guys for joining me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as we wrap up here. And thank you so much.